My name is Sam, I'm 32, and 2 days before my wedding, I found out my sister Emma's pregnancy was fake. She faked it to drain me for $15,000, and she almost ruined my wedding day with her lies. When she tried to steal the spotlight one last time, I exposed everything. The family who called me the responsible one was forced to face the truth. I lost the family I thought I had that day, but I reclaimed my power. Before I tell you how it all went down, where are you watching from today? This is the story of how it all started. I woke up to the vibration of my phone buzzing on the nightstand, the screen lighting up the dark room in soft blue. It was 2:03 a.m., and for a moment I thought it was Michael checking in after his late shift. But it wasn't him. It was Emma. I blinked, trying to clear the sleep from my eyes, and opened her message. Sam, I need you. I'm pregnant. I sat up, heart thumping, in the silence of my small apartment in Lincoln Park, the cold air pressing against my bare arms. I stared at the words, reading them over and over until the letters blurred. Pregnant. I typed. Are you sure? 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. My chest tightened as I waited. I took 3 tests, she replied. I don't know what to do. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, pressing my feet against the cold floor, grounding myself. Michael stirred beside me, rolling over, pulling the blanket tighter, unaware of the chaos blooming in my chest. Who's the father? I typed. Nick, she answered, adding a crying emoji, but I could already picture her voice shaking, her eyes wide with fear. Nick. The boyfriend she had met 6 months ago, who bounced between warehouse gigs and bar shifts, never holding down a job long enough to pay rent on time. I ran a hand through my hair, breathing in deeply. Does he know? I asked. He knows, she answered. But he doesn't have a job right now. He's trying to figure things out. I'm scared, Sam. A wave of protectiveness rose in me, the same way it always did when Emma was in trouble. She was 4 years younger, always the one needing help, and I was always the one stepping in. Michael's alarm buzzed softly, and he reached over to shut it off, blinking at me as he rubbed sleep from his eyes. What's wrong? He whispered. It's Emma, I said, holding up my phone. He frowned, shifting up on one elbow. Is she okay? She says she's pregnant. Michael sighed, rubbing his face, and leaned back against the headboard. Sam, we have enough to think about with the wedding. I know, I said, staring down at the glowing screen. I thought about the vendor deposits, the florist, the down payment for the venue at the Drake Hotel. Every dollar was planned, counted, and tight. But it was Emma. Don't get pulled into her drama again, Michael said softly, but there was a tightness in his voice, the edge of concern mixing with frustration. I just need to talk to her, I whispered. I slipped out of bed, pulling on Michael's oversized sweatshirt as I stepped into the kitchen, the cold tiles sharp under my feet. I dialed Emma's number, pressing the phone to my ear as I stared out into the dark street below. She answered on the first ring, her voice breaking. Sam. Emma, take a breath, I said, trying to steady my own voice. When did you find out? Yesterday, she sobbed. I don't know what to do. I don't have insurance, Sam. I can't pay for a doctor. Nick's trying, but he can't find work. I closed my eyes, pressing a hand against the counter. The city lights flickered outside, reminding me that life kept moving, even when it felt like everything stopped. Okay, I said, swallowing the tightness in my throat. We'll figure it out. You need to see a doctor first, confirm everything, and make sure you're okay. I don't have money for that, Emma whispered. I glanced back toward the bedroom where Michael was now sitting on the edge of the bed watching me. I'll help you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Sam, are you sure? She asked, sniffling. You're my sister, I replied. Silence filled the line for a moment before she spoke again, softer. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you. We ended the call, and I stood there for a long moment, the phone still in my hand, the apartment quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. Michael walked into the kitchen, his hair messy, his face tired. You're going to help her, aren't you? I nodded. He sighed, wrapping his arms around me, resting his chin on my head. Just don't let her take over everything, Sam. We have to think about us too. I closed my eyes, pressing my face against his chest, breathing in the warmth, the safety of him. I wanted to promise him I wouldn't, but I couldn't bring myself to say the words, because deep down I knew Emma needed me. And I wasn't ready to walk away from her, not yet. Michael pulled back just enough to look me in the eyes, his hands firm on my shoulders. "Sam, you can't let her drain you again," he said, voice calm but steady. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. I just nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The next morning, I sent Emma a text telling her to meet me at a diner near her apartment in Uptown. I chose a small booth in the back, my coffee growing cold as I waited. She walked in 20 minutes late, bundled in a pink sweatshirt, her hair in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes. She slid into the booth across from me, her hands shaking as she pulled off her gloves. "Hey," she said, voice small. "Hey," I replied, trying to keep my tone soft. Tears welled in her eyes immediately, and she wiped them away with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. "I'm so scared, Sam," she whispered. I reached across the table, taking her cold hands in mine. "Emma, I need you to be honest with me," I said. "Are you sure about the pregnancy?" She nodded quickly, eyes darting away. "I took 3 tests, all positive." "Have you seen a doctor yet?" I asked. She shook her head, her lip trembling. "I can't afford it." I swallowed, glancing down at her chipped nail polish, the frayed edge of her sleeve. I felt the old pull, the need to fix everything for her, to protect her from the world. "I'll help you get an appointment," I said. "We need to confirm everything, Emma." She nodded, squeezing my hands. "Thank you, Sam. I don't know what I'd do without you." I pulled my hands back, reaching for my coffee, needing something to ground me. "What about Nick?" I asked. She let out a shaky breath. "He's trying, but he's looking for work. He's scared too." I felt a flare of irritation thinking about Nick's last job, how he quit after 2 weeks because the manager was a jerk. "Emma, this is serious," I said. "You need to think about how you're going to take care of yourself and the baby." "I know," she whispered, tears spilling over now. "I know, Sam." We sat there in silence for a moment as the waitress refilled my coffee and offered Emma a warm smile she didn't return. She just kept wiping her tears, staring down at the table. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts. "I know a clinic in Lakeview. I'll call them today and get you an appointment." "Thank you," she said again, her voice cracking. I nodded, pushing my coffee aside. "You need to promise me, Emma, that you'll keep me updated. No hiding things, no surprises." She nodded, sniffling. "I promise." I paid for our coffees, leaving a tip on the table, and we stepped out into the cold morning. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering as we walked to her apartment. "Do you have groceries?" I asked. She shrugged, looking down. "A few things." I sighed, pulling my keys from my pocket. "Come on, we'll grab a few groceries. You need to eat properly." We drove to the grocery store, Emma picking up apples, bread, eggs, and a small container of prenatal vitamins that she stared at for a long moment before putting in the cart. At the checkout, she pulled out her wallet, but I shook my head, sliding my card into the reader. Her shoulders slumped with relief. "Thank you," she whispered again, her voice so soft I barely heard it. I dropped her off at her apartment, helping her carry the bags up the narrow stairway. She hugged me tightly at the door, holding on longer than usual. "I love you, Sam," she said. "I love you too," I replied, kissing the top of her head. I walked back to the car, sitting in the driver's seat with my hands gripping the wheel, breathing deeply, trying to shake off the heaviness pressing on my chest. When I got home, Michael was sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, wedding spreadsheets spread out beside him. "How did it go?" he asked, not looking up. I sank into the chair across from him. "She's scared. I'm getting her a doctor's appointment." Michael looked up then, his blue eyes tired. "Sam, we can't let this take over everything." "I know," I said, but I didn't know how to stop it from happening. Michael reached across the table, placing his hand over mine. "Promise me we won't lose ourselves in this." I looked at him, the man I was supposed to marry in a few months, the man planning our future while I was trying to hold together the pieces of Emma's life. "I promise," I whispered. But deep down, I felt the familiar fear rising, the fear that Emma's chaos would swallow everything, even the life I was trying to build for myself. And I didn't know then, sitting there with Michael's hand over mine, that the promise I made would be the first one I would break. I checked my phone that afternoon, seeing Emma's name pop up on my screen. "Hey Sam, the clinic called me back," she said when I answered, her voice sounding small, almost rehearsed. Did you get the appointment? I asked, balancing the phone between my shoulder and ear as I washed dishes. Yeah, but it's going to cost around $500, she said, pausing before adding. They want to do blood work and an ultrasound. I closed my eyes, letting the water run over my hands, feeling the warmth as I tried to keep my voice steady. Okay, I said softly. I'll send it to you. Thank you, she breathed, relief pouring through the phone. I grabbed a towel, dried my hands, and opened Venmo, typing in the amount, adding a simple note. For the appointment. I hit send, watching the confirmation pop up, a strange knot forming in my stomach. Later that evening, as Michael and I sat on the couch going over our wedding budget on his laptop, my phone buzzed again. Emma had sent me a picture of a blurry ultrasound. A small gray bean-shaped blur in the middle of black space. See, there's the baby, she wrote, followed by a pink heart. I stared at it for a long moment, trying to feel the joy I knew I should feel, but all I felt was tired. Michael leaned over, peeking at my screen. Is that from Emma? I nodded. He sighed, shutting his laptop with a soft click. Sam, I know she's your sister, but we have to set boundaries. I know, I whispered, but the words felt empty in my mouth. The next day, Emma texted again, asking if I could help with vitamins. Her doctor recommended, saying she was too nauseous to cook and needed organic food to keep the baby healthy. It's just 100 or so, she said. I transferred the money, telling myself it was the last time. But it wasn't. A week later, she asked for $40 for prenatal yoga to help her back pain. Then $60 for a prescription her insurance wouldn't cover. $30 for a new pair of maternity leggings because she was bloated and uncomfortable. Every time I sent the payment, I told myself it was the last. Every time she said, "Thank you, Sam, you're saving me," it pulled me back in. I saw her post an Instagram story of her holding a latte at a trendy cafe in Lakeview, her nails freshly painted, the caption reading, "Self-care is essential." Michael saw it over my shoulder, his jaw tightening. Is that what she's using the money for? He asked quietly. I don't know, I replied, locking my phone. You do know, he said, standing up, pacing across the living room. Sam, she's taking advantage of you. She's pregnant, Michael, I snapped, surprising even myself with the sharpness in my voice. He stopped, looking at me, the frustration in his eyes softening into something like sadness. I just don't want you to get hurt. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache forming. I know. Days passed, and the payments kept going. 50 here, 75 there, sometimes 20 for groceries or 25 for a rideshare to a prenatal checkup. Each transaction felt small, insignificant, easy to justify, but they added up, chipping away at the savings we were setting aside for the florist, the band, the photographer. Emma's messages came at all hours. Nick's hours got cut, we're short on rent. The electricity bill is due, I'm scared it'll get shut off. Please, Sam, I don't know who else to ask. And I sent it every time because I couldn't bear to imagine her sitting in the dark, pregnant, and alone, even if some part of me wondered if that was even true. One night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Michael's steady breathing beside me, and opened my banking app. I scrolled through the list of transfers, each one labeled with her name, the amounts small but constant, like a slow leak I couldn't plug. I closed the app, turned off the phone, and pressed it to my chest, whispering into the darkness. Just a little more, Emma. Just a little more. The next morning, Emma texted me a photo of a green smoothie captioned, "Doctor says I need more iron." I stared at it while standing in line for coffee, the smell of roasted beans making my stomach twist. Another message came seconds later. Do you think you could send me 40, just to grab more spinach and vitamins? I typed, sure, before I could think, pressing send on another Venmo payment. Thank you, Sam. I love you, she replied, followed by a heart. I slipped the phone into my coat pocket, feeling the familiar tug of guilt and relief mix in my chest. By the time I got to work, there was another message from Mom. Emma told me you're helping her. Good girl. You've always been the responsible one. I set the phone face down on my desk, closing my eyes for a moment before diving into emails for a client's upcoming gala. But even as I was typing out vendor confirmations, her messages kept coming. Sam, the doctor said I should get prenatal yoga classes. Sam, I'm out of those vitamins, they're expensive, but good for the baby. Nick's job cut his hours again. We're worried about rent. Each time the amounts were small enough that saying no felt cruel but big enough that my savings app kept sending notifications about dropping balances. At night, Michael and I sat in the living room, wedding spreadsheets open on the coffee table. I was cross-checking floral quotes when my phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but I did. "Emma, the power bill is due, Sam. Can you help?" Michael saw the look on my face, his jaw tightening. "Is it her again?" "She needs help," I said quietly. "Sam, we are trying to plan a wedding. Every dollar we spend matters." "I know," I said, avoiding his eyes, tapping out another payment. "Sam," Michael said, his voice firmer, "now you need to stop. You're not her mother. I'm all she has." I whispered, my chest tight. "Are you?" he asked. "Or are you just the easiest one to ask?" I couldn't answer. I looked down, seeing the glow of my phone screen as the payment confirmation popped up. Later that week, while grabbing lunch near the office, I opened Instagram, scrolling mindlessly until Emma's story appeared. She was sitting at a trendy brunch spot, a latte with perfect foam art in front of her, wearing a new oversized sweater, smiling at the camera. "Taking care of me so I can take care of baby," the caption read. I felt a sharp sting like betrayal, but I pushed it away. Maybe it was a treat, I told myself. Maybe she needed it. That evening, while folding laundry, my phone rang, Emma's name flashing. I hesitated before answering. "Hey, what's up?" I asked, trying to sound normal. "Nick lost his job completely," she said, her voice trembling. "We're behind on rent. They're threatening to kick us out." I sat on the edge of the bed, gripping a towel in my hands. "How much do you need?" I asked. There was a pause, and I could hear her breath on the other end. "500 just to get us caught up." I squeezed my eyes shut, seeing the dress I had saved for the photographer I hadn't booked yet, the venue payment due next month. "Okay," I whispered, "I'll send it." "Thank you, Sam. You don't know how much this means." After we hung up, I walked into the kitchen, seeing Michael chopping vegetables for dinner, his back turned to me. I opened Venmo again, watching the screen load, my thumb hovering over the payment button. I pressed send, the payment whooshing away into the digital void. And in that moment, standing in the quiet kitchen, with the smell of garlic in the air, I felt something shift inside me, something cold and heavy. Because deep down I knew this wasn't the last time she would ask, and I didn't know they were planning to take everything I had left. Emma called me on a Tuesday morning while I was setting up floral samples for a client. "Sam, I've been thinking," she said, her voice bright, almost excited. I wiped my hands on a towel, balancing the phone between my ear and shoulder. "About what I want to have a baby shower," she said quickly, like she was afraid if she didn't say it fast I would stop her. I paused, the sound of water dripping from the stems onto the counter. "Emma, it's too early. You're not even showing yet." "I know, but I want to celebrate this," she said, her voice softening, adding a small sniff. Before I get too big and tired, I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar tug of guilt twisting in my stomach. "Emma, I don't have the money for that right now." "Please, Sam," she whispered, her voice breaking. "No one else cares about me. Mom doesn't have the space, and Nick's parents don't even talk to us." I pressed my fingers to my temple, glancing at my laptop where the wedding budget spreadsheet glowed. Every dollar was already stretched thin. "I don't know," I said quietly. That afternoon, Mom called while I was driving home, her voice calm but with that edge I had known since I was a kid. "Emma told me you're being difficult," she said. "Mom, I can't afford it," I replied, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "She's your sister, Sam," Mom said, her voice firm. "She needs you. You're always the responsible one." I didn't respond. The traffic light turned green, and I let the car roll forward, the silence heavy between us. When I got home, Michael was at the kitchen table scrolling through venue emails, his coffee half finished. "How was your day?" he asked, looking up with tired eyes. "Emma wants a baby shower," I said, dropping my keys on the counter. His jaw tightened immediately. And Mom called telling me to do it," I said, pulling off my coat. "Sam, we can't," he said, standing up. "We have the photographer deposit next week." "I know," I said, looking at him, my eyes burning. "But it's Emma." He shook his head, running a hand through his hair. "You can't keep doing this." But I did. A week later, I was standing in a small event space in Logan Square, watching the catering staff set up fruit platters and a cake with pink and blue frosting that read, "Welcome little one." $2,000 gone just like that for flowers, catering, balloons, and a photographer Emma insisted on. "You'll want these memories," she had said, her eyes wide, a hand on her stomach. When she arrived, she wore a tight cream dress, hugging her body, her stomach flat under the fabric. I blinked, trying not to let confusion show on my face. "Maybe it's just too early," I told myself. "Sam, this is beautiful," she said, hugging me tightly, perfume clinging to my sweater. "You're welcome," I said softly, forcing a smile. During the party, she posed with the cake, holding tiny baby shoes over her stomach, laughing as her friends took pictures. I stood to the side, holding a cup of lemonade, my phone buzzing with payment alerts from the photographer. "Sam, can you help us get one with the family?" she called out, her eyes glinting as she reached for Mom's hand. Mom smiled, turning to me. "Come here, Sam. Let's get one with you in it." I stepped into the frame, standing next to Emma as she leaned into me, her cheek brushing mine. "Thank you," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "You're the only one who's ever been here for me." I swallowed, pressing my lips into a tight line, blinking back the burn in my eyes. Because no matter how much I tried to tell myself this was the last thing I would do for her, deep down I knew it wouldn't be. After the party ended, I stayed back to help clean up, tossing paper cups into trash bags, wiping frosting smears off the folding tables. Emma was sitting on a chair, scrolling through photos on her phone, a soft smile on her face. "These turned out so good," she said, turning the screen toward me. "I look happy." "You should be," I said, tying the trash bag closed. "It was a nice day." She sighed, sliding the phone into her purse. "It was perfect, Sam." "Thank you." I nodded, forcing a smile, but my mind was on the bill I had paid that morning, the florist's invoice still sitting unread in my inbox, and the photographer's final payment due in a week. As I was wiping down the last table, Michael's text popped up. "Did you pay for everything today?" I stared at the message, my stomach tightening, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. "Yes. We can talk later." The three dots appeared, then disappeared. I slipped my phone into my pocket. Mom walked over, wrapping her arms around Emma, kissing her cheek. "You're glowing, baby," she said. Emma wiped a tear from the corner of her eye, letting out a small sniff. "I'm just so grateful. I feel loved today." Mom turned to me, nodding. "You did good, Sam. You've always been such a good sister." I forced a laugh, but inside something cracked a little. Emma stood up, adjusting her tight dress, smoothing it over her stomach. It was still flat even under the thin fabric. "How far along are you again?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She blinked, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Almost 12 weeks. "Still early," I said, nodding, forcing myself to look away before she noticed the doubt in my eyes. She hugged me tightly, her perfume sweet and heavy. "I couldn't do this without you," she whispered. I swallowed, hugging her back. "I know." After we loaded the last boxes into the car, I drove Emma back to her apartment, the late afternoon light turning the city gold. She hummed softly, scrolling through Instagram, posting stories from the baby shower, tagging me in every photo. "Everyone will see how good you are to me," she said, smiling. I didn't answer, keeping my eyes on the road. When we pulled up outside her building, she turned to me, her eyes shining. "I mean it, Sam. You're all I have." I nodded, reaching for the door handle, needing to breathe. "I'll call you tomorrow," she said, leaning over to kiss my cheek before slipping out of the car, waving as she walked toward the building. I watched her until the door closed behind her, the street suddenly quiet. I drove home in silence, the weight of the day pressing down on my shoulders. When I walked through the door, Michael was standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, his face tight. "How much did it cost?" he asked. I set my purse down, taking a breath. "Around 2,000. His eyes closed, jaw clenching. "Sam, we can't keep doing this." "She needed this, Michael," I said, my voice trembling. "We need this too," he said, pointing to the stack of wedding invoices on the counter. "I know," I whispered. He stepped closer, his hands resting on the counter, his eyes tired. "You're letting her drain you. This was supposed to be our year, Sam." I looked away, blinking back, tears pressing a hand to my mouth to keep the sob from slipping out. Because deep down I knew he was right. And I didn't know that the party I threw for Emma was just the beginning of what she planned to take from me. A few nights after the baby shower, I sat on the couch with my laptop scrolling through wedding floral options trying to focus. Michael was in the kitchen finishing dishes, the clatter of plates breaking the silence between us. My phone buzzed. Emma again. Look how cute, she texted, sending another ultrasound photo, a grainy black and white image. Something inside me paused. I pulled the photo up, zooming in, staring at the shape in the middle of the screen. It looked exactly like the last one she sent. Exactly. I opened a new tab, hands trembling as I typed 12-week ultrasound, clicking over to Google Images. Rows of black and white images filled the screen, each one almost identical, but then I saw it, the exact same photo Emma had just sent down to the tiny white text in the corner. It was from a pregnancy blog dated 2017. My heart pounded so loud I thought I might be sick. I grabbed my phone, pacing the living room, calling Emma without thinking. She answered on the third ring, her voice bright. Hey Sam. Emma, where did you get that ultrasound? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She paused. What do you mean? From the doctor. No, Emma, I said, my voice rising. I found the exact photo online. It's from a blog post. Did you send me a fake ultrasound? Silence, then a sniff. The doctor sent me a sample image, she said quickly. Mine wasn't clear, so he sent an example. Emma, that's not how it works, I snapped, stopping by the window looking out at the empty street. You're stressing me out, she cried. Why would you accuse me of lying about something like this? I closed my eyes, pressing my fingers to the bridge of my nose, fighting the urge to scream. Then send me the paperwork, Emma. From your appointments. They haven't emailed it yet, she said, her voice shaky. I told you the hospital is slow. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Sam, please, she whispered. You're all I have. I hung up without another word, dropping onto the couch, staring at the ceiling as Michael stepped into the room. What happened? He asked, his voice careful. I turned to him, tears filling my eyes. I think she's lying, Michael. He sat down beside me, pulling me into his arms. Sam, she is lying. You know it. I shook my head, pressing my face into his chest, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I just wanted to help her, I whispered. I know, he said softly, rubbing my back. That night, after Michael fell asleep, I opened my laptop again, pulling up my bank statements. Payment after payment, each labeled with Emma's name. Rent, food, yoga, vitamins, bills, the baby shower. I opened a spreadsheet, my hands steady now, and started logging every payment, every transfer, every Venmo and Zelle note. I pulled up our text threads, scrolling back, screenshotting each request, each promise, each thank you. My phone buzzed again. Emma. Love you, Sam. Thank you for everything. I stared at the message for a long time, then placed my phone face down on the table. Because I knew I couldn't let her take anything else without knowing the truth first. Because I knew I couldn't let her take anything else without knowing the truth first. The next morning I woke up early, the sky still gray over Chicago, my mind already racing. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened my laptop. My fingers hovered before I started searching how to verify a pregnancy. Forum posts, articles, endless threads of women asking about fake pregnancies, about family members who lied for money. I felt sick scrolling, reading stories of sisters, cousins, daughters, each one echoing what I was afraid to say out loud. I opened our text history, reading every message Emma had sent since that night she told me she was pregnant. Sam, I need $50 for vitamins. Sam, the doctor wants me on a special diet. Sam, we can't pay rent, Nick's hours got cut. Each message followed by me replying, of course. Sending now. I felt stupid looking at them. So stupid. I picked up my phone and dialed Emma, my thumb shaking. She answered on the second ring. Hey Sam, she said, cheerful. Emma, I need you to send me your appointment paperwork, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. There was silence, then a sigh. Sam, I told you the hospital hasn't emailed me yet. It's been months, Emma, I said, my voice tightening. They have to give you something. Why don't you trust me? She snapped, her voice rising. Why would I lie about this? Because I found your ultrasound on Google, I said, my hands gripping the phone so hard it hurt. Silence. I heard her breathing fast, shallow. It was just a reference photo, Sam, she finally said, her voice trembling. Mine was blurry. Then send me the blurry one, I said. I don't have it, she whispered. I closed my eyes, tears burning, anger mixing with grief. Emma, I've given you everything. Everything. You're stressing me out, she cried. This isn't good for the baby. I hung up before I could say anything I'd regret. I sat there staring at the floor, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. Michael came into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Sam. She's lying. Michael, I said, my voice breaking. She's been lying. He sat across from me, reaching for my hand. Then we stop. We stop now. I nodded, but my heart felt like it was splitting open. That day, I started printing everything. Every Venmo payment, every text, every email from Emma. I bought a folder labeling it Emma. I didn't care how paranoid it looked. I needed to protect myself. I even checked my bank app and started tagging every payment as Emma support so I could see exactly how much I had spent. Over $8,000. $8,000 I could have used for our wedding, for a down payment for our future. That night, I couldn't sleep, so I scrolled through Emma's Instagram. Photos of her at brunch with friends, smiling, mimosas in hand. New clothes, new shoes, all tagged with number blessed and number grateful. I checked the dates. Each post lined up with days she told me she couldn't afford groceries when I sent her money when she said Nick was out of work. I took screenshots, saved them. My phone buzzed. It was Emma. Sam, I need $100 for a checkup tomorrow. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering my chest tight. I didn't reply. Instead, I turned off my phone and laid it on the nightstand, turning to Michael in the dark. I'm done, I whispered. He pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my forehead. I'm proud of you. But inside, I wasn't sure I was proud of myself. Because I knew the next step would break everything apart, and I wasn't ready for how brutal the truth might be. The morning of my wedding, I woke before dawn, staring at the ceiling, feeling the cold air in the room. Michael was asleep beside me, breathing steady, unaware of the storm spinning in my chest. I got up, dressed in silence, and headed to the Drake Hotel to check the setup. The ballroom was beautiful, soft gold lights, blush florals, rows of white chairs lined perfectly. I should have felt joy, relief, something. But I only felt heavy, every step like I was walking through water. Vendors arrived, florists fixing centerpieces, the catering team setting up the cocktail bar. I walked the floor, clipboard in hand, double-checking place cards, ignoring the shaking in my hands. Sam, breathe, Michael whispered when he arrived, kissing my forehead. I tried to smile, but my stomach twisted, a quiet dread pressing down. An hour before the ceremony, I stood in front of the mirror in the bridal suite, the dress zipped, the veil pinned. I barely recognized myself. Eyes tired, lips pressed thin, the white lace heavy on my shoulders. Mom knocked once before slipping inside, her eyes scanning me, her mouth tight. You look beautiful, she said softly. I nodded, adjusting the earrings, checking my reflection again. My phone buzzed on the vanity. It was Nick. Call me. Urgent. My chest tightened as I answered. Nick, what's wrong? His voice was frantic. It's Emma. She's bleeding, Sam. A lot. I think she's losing the baby. I'm taking her to the hospital now. The room spun, my free hand gripping the vanity to keep from falling. What I whispered. She's screaming, Sam. She's terrified. You need to come. I swallowed, my mouth dry. It's my wedding, Nick. Family comes first, he snapped before hanging up. I stood there staring at my reflection, the white dress suddenly too bright, too loud. Mom grabbed my arm, her eyes wild. We need to go, Sam. She needs us. Mom, it's my wedding day. I said, my voice breaking. She's your sister. She shouted, tears in her eyes. You can get married anytime. The door opened, Michael stepping inside, his face, pale eyes flicking between us. What's going on? He demanded. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Emma's in trouble, Mom said. She's losing the baby. We need to go. Michael's jaw tightened, his hands curling into fists. Sam, no. We are not letting her ruin this day. Tears blurred my vision as I turned toward him. She might be losing the baby. And she might be lying again, Michael shot back, his voice cold. Mom gasped. How dare you say that about your family? Michael didn't flinch. She's done nothing but drain Sam for months. Not today. My hands shook as I pressed them to my face, the room spinning, my heart pounding in my ears. I looked at Mom, then at Michael, then back at my reflection. The girl in the mirror looked broken, torn between the life she was building and the family that kept pulling her back. I can't do this, I whispered. You can, Michael said, stepping closer, taking my hands in his. We can. Mom shook her head, her face twisted with anger. You're making a mistake. She turned, storming out of the room, the door slamming behind her. Silence fell heavy, suffocating. Michael pulled me into his arms, holding me as I sobbed, the white dress crumpling in his hands. And when I pulled back, wiping the tears, I whispered, We're still getting married. He nodded, kissing my forehead, his eyes softening. Yes, we are. I closed my eyes, letting his promise settle into the hollow space in my chest, knowing this wedding would go on even if everything else was falling apart. We walked out of the bridal suite hand in hand as the coordinator signaled it was time. The music started, soft piano chords filling the air as the doors opened, warm lights spilling onto the aisle. I felt every step, the lace of my dress brushing against my ankles, the weight of the veil heavy down my back. Guests turned, standing, smiling, phones lifting, but their faces were a blur. I kept my eyes on Michael, his soft smile holding me together as we reached the altar. Pastor Green welcomed everyone, his voice warm, but the words barely touched me. I kept glancing at the back of the room, expecting to see Mom, but the doorway stayed empty. She had chosen to leave me here, and the hollow in my chest pulsed with every breath. Michael squeezed my hand, grounding me, reminding me I was not alone. His vows were calm, steady, speaking of home, of choosing each other no matter what storms came. When it was my turn, my voice cracked, but I pushed through each word, a promise I meant even if I felt like I was breaking apart inside. We exchanged rings, hands trembling, the world going silent for a moment as I looked into his eyes. You may kiss the bride. When he kissed me, the room erupted in cheers, but I barely heard them, holding onto him, wishing I could freeze this moment away from the chaos. At the reception, I tried to smile, hugging family, greeting friends, thanking vendors, but the empty seat at the family table was a constant reminder of what was missing. Michael stayed close, whispering small jokes, reminding me to eat, holding my hand under the table. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach clenched, expecting another disaster, another demand. Nothing. During our first dance, Michael held me close, his lips brushing my temple. We made it, he whispered. I nodded, resting my head against his chest, closing my eyes, letting the music wash over me. But when I opened my eyes, I saw the empty space where my mother should have been, saw the family I thought I had slipping further away. Dinner was served, speeches were made, laughter echoing under the chandeliers, but I felt like a ghost in my own celebration. Later I escaped to the bridal suite, sinking onto the small couch, the dress heavy, the room spinning. I pulled off my shoes, pressing my palms to my face, breathing deep, trying to remember that this was supposed to be a day of joy. Michael came in, 2 glasses of champagne in hand, his tie-loosened hair falling across his forehead. He handed me a glass, clinking it softly against mine. To us, he said. I managed a small smile, the bubbles stinging my tongue as I took a sip. To us, I whispered back. He pulled me into his arms, holding me close, his warmth steady, grounding me. And for a moment I let myself believe that it was over, that we had survived the storm, that nothing else could ruin this day. But later that night, as I lay next to Michael in the quiet hotel suite, my phone buzzed with a message that made my breath catch. Sam, you need to know. Emma was never pregnant. I stared at the message, the glow of the screen cutting through the darkness of our hotel suite. Emma was never pregnant. The words blurred as tears welled up, mascara already smeared on my cheeks from the day that was supposed to be the happiest of my life. I slid off the edge of the bed, the fabric of my wedding dress catching under my knees as I sank to the floor. Michael stirred, rolling over. Sam, what is it? I couldn't speak. I just held the phone out to him, my hands shaking so hard the screen rattled. He squinted, reading the message, his jaw tightening, breath leaving him in a slow hiss. Are you serious? He whispered, his voice sharp, slicing through the quiet. I pressed my hands to my face, trying to breathe, trying to process the betrayal that burned hotter than any anger I had ever felt. Michael slid out of bed, kneeling beside me, his hand on my shoulder. Sam, we need to know if this is true. I nodded, reaching for my phone again, scrolling through Emma's old messages, rereading every "I need help" and "the baby needs this." My chest tightened with every word, every dollar I had sent, believing I was helping family. At 3:17 a.m., I called the hospital Emma claimed she was admitted to. A nurse answered, her voice calm and tired. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we don't have any record of an Emma Miller being admitted this week." My stomach flipped, bile rising in my throat as I whispered, "Thank you," before hanging up. Michael's hand gripped mine, steadying me as I opened my banking app, scrolling back through months of transactions. Venmo, Zelle, wire transfers. Groceries, doctor's visit, emergency scan, vitamin supplements. Line after line, the numbers adding up until the total made my vision swim. $15,000. I had sent them over $15,000, thinking I was helping Emma, thinking I was saving her, thinking I was being the sister she needed. My fingers hovered over the print button, then I pressed at the small printer in the corner of the room, whirring to life, spitting out page after page. Each line felt like another knife, another reminder that I had let them take from me while I was planning my wedding, while I was working double shifts to cover costs, while I was cutting corners on my own dreams. I found the email for the baby shower, the confirmation from the venue. The sender wasn't Emma, it was Nick. His personal email, his signature at the bottom. "Thanks for helping us make this day special." Michael's face was red, his hands shaking as he grabbed the paper, reading it over and over. "They planned this," he said, voice low, rage bubbling just under the surface. "They planned all of it." I pulled my knees to my chest, burying my face in my hands as a sob tore through me, loud and raw. "I was so stupid, Michael," I choked out. "I wanted her to love me. I wanted them to see me." He pulled me into his arms, holding me so tight I could barely breathe, whispering against my hair, "This isn't your fault, Sam. This is on them. All of it." The papers lay scattered across the floor, black and white, proof of every lie, every betrayal, every moment I chose them over myself. And for the first time, sitting there in my wedding dress, mascara staining the lace, I felt something shift inside me. A cold, hard line drawing itself in the sand. Because I knew I would never let them take from me again. I wiped my face, my fingers trembling as I gathered the papers from the floor. Each page felt heavier than the last, numbers and dates screaming at me, proof of every lie they had fed me. Michael paced across the room, his hands in his hair, muttering, "This is insane. They used you." I set the papers down, looking at him, my voice hoarse. "I let them." He stopped, turning to me, his eyes softening, but there was anger there too, not at me but at them. "No, Sam. They manipulated you. That's not the same." I stood, the dress heavy, the fabric dragging across the floor as I moved to the table, grabbing a pen. "I need to see exactly how much they took," I said, flipping through the printouts, circling amounts, highlighting dates. The numbers added up quickly, each Venmo transfer, each Zelle payment, each lie, hidden under Dr. Grocery's appointment. Michael came to my side, placing a hand on my back. "What are you going to do?" I swallowed hard, my throat raw. "I'm going to get it back." The words surprised me as they left my mouth, but they felt right, like something solid inside me, something I hadn't felt in years. Michael nodded. "Whatever you need, I'm with you." I met his eyes, seeing the promise there, the quiet strength that reminded me I wasn't alone anymore. I opened my email, pulling up the booking confirmation for the baby shower, reading it again. The sender, Nick Harrison. His personal Gmail address, his name signed at the bottom. "Looking forward to making this day special for Emma." A bitter laugh escaped my lips, tears stinging again as I whispered, "They didn't even try to hide it." I pulled out my phone, scrolling back through texts with Emma, the "I'm scared" and "I need you, Sam" messages, each one twisting in my chest. I closed the app, looking around the room, the wedding decorations still scattered, the flowers wilting in their vases. My wedding day had been stolen, my peace shattered, but I wasn't going to let them take anything else. Michael squeezed my hand. "You ready?" I nodded, taking a deep breath, pulling my shoulders back. "I'm done being the sister who fixes everything for them," I said, my voice steady. "They don't get to take any more from me." Michael's eyes met mine, a small, proud smile on his lips. "Then let's make sure they don't." I grabbed my laptop, opening a spreadsheet, typing in every transaction, every date, every lie. $15, 372.48. That was the total they took from me under the guise of family and love. I stared at the number, letting it burn into me, letting it fuel the cold, calm anger that was rising. This was not going to be another moment. I let them walk away with my trust, my money, my heart. I picked up my phone, scrolling to Emma's name, hovering over the call button, my thumb shaking. Then I pressed it. It rang once, twice, 3 times before it went to voicemail, her cheerful voice chirping. "Leave a message," I drew in a breath, letting the silence fill the space. "Emma," I said, my voice clear, steady. "We need to talk." Because I was done being their victim. And I was ready to take everything back. I parked outside my mother's house, the folder heavy in my lap. I stared at the front door, breathing in the cold morning air, letting it steady me. No more fear, no more begging for love, no more letting them take. I grabbed the folder, my laptop bag, and stepped out, heels clicking on the walkway. Inside, the house smelled like stale coffee and lavender, cleaner, the air thick, waiting. They were already seated in the living room. My mother on the couch, arms crossed. Emma sat next to her, eyes, red hair tied up like a child, trying to look innocent. Nick stood behind them, his jaw clenched, gaze fixed on the floor. I set the folder down on the coffee table, pulling out my laptop and opening it. No one said a word as I pulled up the files, letting the screen glow between us. "I want you all to see exactly what you did," I said, my voice calm even. Emma sniffled, twisting her hands in her lap. "Sam, please, we can talk about this." I ignored her, clicking on the screenshots, the Venmo transfers, the emails from Nick's account. Every payment, every lie, every dollar they stole from me lit up on the screen. "This is $15,000, I said, looking directly at Emma. "And this," I clicked again, pulling up the ultrasound image next to the Google result, "is a photo you pulled off the internet." Emma's face crumpled, tears spilling, but I felt nothing this time, just quiet resolve. "Sam, I needed the money," she whispered, her voice shaking. My mother's voice cut through the room, sharp, angry. "You are tearing this family apart." I turned to her, feeling the strength in my spine, the steel in my chest. "No, Mom. I'm protecting myself." Nick cleared his throat, shifting, but he didn't speak, didn't deny it, didn't defend Emma. I turned back to Emma, who was crying now, shoulders shaking. "I was scared, Sam," she said. "I thought Nick would leave if we didn't have enough. I thought you would help. You thought I would pay for your life," I corrected, my voice flat. "And you were right for a while." My mother stood up, pointing a finger at me, her voice rising. "You're heartless. She's your sister." I looked at her, really looked, and saw every moment I had let this happen, every time I had kept quiet to keep the peace. "No, I'm done being your scapegoat," I said, closing the laptop slowly. "This ends now." I slid the folder across the table, the papers inside, neat, organized, undeniable. "I have a lawyer," I continued, looking at each of them. "You have 48 hours to pay back every cent. Or I take this to the police." The silence that followed was like a vacuum pressing in, but I didn't flinch. Emma covered her face, sobbing, while Nick finally spoke, his voice low. "We'll figure it out." I nodded, once standing, slipping my laptop into my bag, the folder tucked under my arm. My mother's mouth opened, but she said nothing, her eyes wet with rage, confusion, fear. I turned and walked out the front door, clicking shut behind me, the cold air hitting my face. For the first time in my life, I felt light. I walked down the porch steps, feeling the cold air wrap around my skin. I didn't rush to my car. I stood there, watching the leaves swirl along the driveway. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, half expecting a call from my mother. But it was Michael. "Did you do it?" he asked, his voice steady, grounding me. I closed my eyes, letting out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "Yeah, I did." There was a pause. Then he said, "I'm proud of you." Those words cracked something inside me, something I had held together for too long. "Thank you," I whispered, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I'll see you at home," he said softly before hanging up. I slid into the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel, letting the silence settle. I drove back through the neighborhood, past the houses with trimmed lawns and Halloween decorations. Each block I passed felt like peeling away another layer of guilt, fear, and obligation. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the weight on my chest felt lighter. Inside the house smelled like coffee and the faint vanilla candle I always forgot to blow out. I set the folder on the dining table, took off my coat, and washed my hands staring at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red, but there was a calm in them I hadn't seen before. Michael came into the kitchen wiping his hands on a towel, studying me. "How are you feeling?" he asked. I shrugged, pulling my hair back into a loose bun. "Tired, but clear." He stepped closer, placing his hands on my shoulders, grounding me again. "You did what you had to do," he said, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "I know," I replied, leaning into him, letting his warmth steady me. We sat down at the table, the folder between us, the reality of what I had done sinking in. I opened it, flipping through the pages one last time, reminding myself of the truth. The Venmo transfers, the fake ultrasound, the lies Emma had told, the emails Nick had sent. Each piece was a shard of the story I had lived through, a reminder of what I had survived. Michael reached over, squeezing my hand. "You don't have to carry this alone anymore." "I know," I said again, my voice firmer this time. We sat in silence, the clock ticking softly in the background, the late afternoon light streaming in. Then my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. It was a photo of Emma sitting at a table with Nick, both of them looking down, their faces pale. The text read, "She's scared, Sam. She wants to talk." I stared at the message, my fingers tightening around the phone. Michael looked at me, concern in his eyes. "What is it?" I looked up, meeting his gaze. "They want to talk." He tilted his head. "Are you going to?" I paused, letting the question hang in the air, the ticking clock suddenly louder. "I don't know," I said quietly. "But I do know one thing." "What's that?" he asked. I took a deep breath, closing the folder, pushing it away. "That I won't let them break me again," I said, my voice steady. The sun dipped, lower shadows stretching across the floor, the room holding its breath with me. Because I didn't know if they would pay me back. But for the first time, I was ready to move forward with or without them. 2 days later, my phone buzzed as I was folding laundry in the quiet of our apartment. It was a payment notification from the bank. I froze, laundry slipping from my hands, staring at the screen. Nicholas Carter, $15. Oh. No memo, no apology, just numbers and silence. My breath caught. The number looked unreal, like it didn't belong to me, like it was a receipt for a life I had finally closed. I walked into the kitchen, phone in hand, heart hammering. Michael was at the counter chopping vegetables for dinner, his sleeves rolled up, humming under his breath. He looked up when he saw me. "What's wrong?" I turned the screen toward him, swallowing. "They paid it back." His eyebrows shot up, then a slow, proud smile spread across his face. "You did it." I let out a shaky laugh, the tension that had been coiled inside me for months unspooling all at once. "I did," I whispered. He set down the knife, walked over and wrapped his arms around me, pressing his forehead to mine. "I'm so proud of you, Sam," he said softly. I closed my eyes, letting the warmth of him, the steadiness, anchor me. Later, I sat at my laptop, transferring the money into our house fund. Watching the numbers move, I felt tears sting the corners of my eyes. Not tears of anger or loss or betrayal. Tears of something softer. Relief. Release. I closed the laptop and took a deep breath, the kind that felt like it reached every corner of my lungs. That evening, Michael suggested a walk, and we headed down to Lakefront Trail, the breeze cool against our faces. The lake shimmered under the fading light, and the city hummed behind us, alive and uncaring. We walked in silence for a while, our hands brushing our steps in sync. I glanced at him, the man who stood by me when my own family turned away. "I'm sorry for letting them take so much," I said quietly. He stopped, turning to me. "You don't need to apologize for having a heart." "But I let them drain me," I said, the words trembling. "You didn't let them," he replied, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "You believed in them. That's who you are." I closed my eyes, letting the wind dry the tears on my cheeks. "And now," he continued, "you're choosing you." I nodded, opening my eyes to look at him, to really see him. "Yes," I whispered. "Now I choose me." We continued walking, the city lights blinking on as the sky darkened. Every step felt like I was reclaiming something I didn't even know I had lost. My freedom, my worth. The permission to stop performing for people who never saw me. The permission to build a life that wasn't built on trying to prove I was enough. When we got back home, Michael made dinner while I lit a candle on the table. We ate in comfortable silence, the soft glow of the candle flickering between us. Afterward, I stepped onto our small balcony looking out at the lights of Chicago, the hum of traffic, a reminder that life was moving and so was I. I took out my phone, scrolling past the texts from Emma, the missed calls from Mom. I deleted them one by one, my thumb steady, my breath calm. Then I opened a new note and typed, "I am not responsible for saving people who choose to drown." I set the phone down, closing my eyes, letting the cool air wash over me. I didn't know what tomorrow would look like, but for the first time I wasn't afraid. Because I knew finally that I was free. I woke up early the next morning, the sunlight spilling through the window warm on my face. For the first time in months, I didn't feel the weight on my chest, the constant buzzing of fear in the back of my mind. I made coffee, the smell filling the apartment, grounding me in this new calm. Michael came out, hair messy, rubbing his eyes, smiling when he saw me. "You're up early." I handed him a cup, my fingers brushing his. "Yeah." I couldn't sleep. We stood there, sipping coffee, the quiet between us, soft, not heavy. "I'm proud of you," he said, suddenly his voice low. I looked at him, the man who stayed, who held me when I was breaking, who never made me feel small for caring too much. "Thank you," I whispered. We spent the morning cleaning the apartment, playing music, dancing between boxes of wedding decor I decided to donate. I packed away the guest lists, the elaborate seating charts, the plans for a wedding that was never really mine. I didn't need the big venue, the grand gestures, the expectations I was trying to meet for everyone else. I wanted something small, something real. Later that afternoon, we walked down Lakefront Trail again, the breeze cool, the water calm. I closed my eyes, breathing in the scent of the lake, the sound of waves lapping against the rocks. I don't think I ever really let myself live before, I said, opening my eyes to look at Michael. He slipped his hand into mine, squeezing gently. "Now you can." We stopped at a bench, sitting in the fading light, the city lights blinking on around us. I pulled out my phone, checking the bank app, the numbers still there, reminding me of what I took back. I transferred a portion into our house fund, watching the confirmation pop up. A promise to myself. A promise that I would never let anyone take my power again, no matter who they were. That night, we cooked dinner together, laughing when Michael burned the garlic, dancing around the kitchen to old songs we both loved. After we ate, I stood on the balcony looking out at the city, the air cool on my skin. I thought about my mother, about Emma, about all the years I spent trying to earn a love that was conditional, fragile, sharp around the edges. I thought about how many times I betrayed myself just to keep the peace. And I thought about the woman I was now standing here, unafraid, choosing herself for the first time. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their love if it came with strings, with guilt, with a price I could never pay. I just needed to know I was enough. And as the city lights flickered below, I finally believed it. I turned to go inside, ready to close this chapter for good. Have you ever been in a situation like this? Share in the comments.